this video will be on my discussion on the assignment, Are You Responsible? About a speech on a notable person of society that I personally found. Sorry for my voice, I'm a little sick. So, to answer question one states, what can we all do that will change the way we are perceived? So there are a lot of things that we can do to change the way we are perceived as people, and I personally think that one of the biggest things to change the way that one is perceived is through self-confidence. If others see that we hold confidence, they would be more ready to interact with us back with the same amount of energy and the same amount of confidence. So having self-confidence not only shows other people around you that you're secure in who you are as a person, it also makes you more approachable, because if you're more self-confident, you're usually more of an upbeat person. And by having more self-confidence and pulling out confidence from someone else you're communicating with, it leads to really strong communication in the big picture. Some other things we can do to include the way we speak to people. As communicators, we should avoid being aggressive, because using aggressive language can really push back someone from wanting to talk to us. We become intimidating, and honestly, no one wants to talk to an aggressive, intimidating person. So we can change the way we're perceived by the way we speak. So one of these things is removing aggressive words and aggressive actions while we speak. As communicators, we should avoid some other things we can do through effective communication is using the message design logic of rhetoric. By doing so, we can clearly but effectively and nicely get our way across to someone, and also not make that person feel like they are necessarily being attacked. And by being able to communicate in this proper way, we are becoming slowly effective communicators. And this also can help change the way people perceive us, because if we started off as bad communicators, but slowly we work to be ethical and to be nice and to be fair, people will be more willing to approach us, and our perception can potentially change. So non-verbal things we can do to make people comfortable and change the perception of us is good posture. You should sit up straight when you're talking to someone. You should always have direct eye contact, because when you have direct eye contact, it makes someone feel like you're actually engaged with them. And if they feel like you're engaging and listening and talking, they'll be more willing to reciprocate that kind of action as well. And all of these things in general can help the way we are perceived and how we can change our perception if we feel like we should change our perception. Question 2. Are we responsible to change a perception that we don't have control over? I personally say no, because if you love who you are, you think that you're a kind person, and you're doing your best to be a good, ethical communicator, then that's all you can do. Like, there's always going to be people that don't like you. That's just the sad truth. There's always going to be someone who just doesn't want to be your friend, someone who doesn't want to talk to you. And sadly, that's just how it is nowadays. And you shouldn't have to go severely out of your way to make someone like you and make someone perceive you differently if you know in your heart that you're being the best version of yourself. So that's just my personal opinion. I just don't think that you are responsible of changing a perception that can't be changed, because you've already done your best, you know? So that's just my personal opinion. Question 3. So question 3 says, what is your perception of this person? Okay, so this assignment was, for me, I had to find a speech of a notable person in society, and I chose to do a speech that was given by Steve Jobs in 2005, and it was his Stanford commencement address. Based on my past knowledge of Steve Jobs, my perception of him was of a man who was a monumental intellectual human that changed the way society runs and communicates with each other. And I feel like he did this through the creation of Apple, which is now the most used cell phone in the world. So yeah, based on overall my perception of him is that he's successful, He's accomplished. He's done a lot to get to where he is, and based on the research I've done on him and based on the things I know that he's done, I have a positive perception of Steve Jobs, because he's done a lot to get where he is. Sadly, he passed, but he's done a lot to get where he was, and he worked his butt off to get there, and I personally believe he overall deserves to have a positive perception. All right. So, question 4 states, what are some immediate stereotypes you drew of this person before I heard him speak? So, before I heard Steve Jobs give this speech, I really thought that he was essentially a nerd. Like, he was a workaholic. He really always focused his time on his job. He, understood technology. He created so many things, and I just kind of stereotyped him as a nerd. And honestly, there's way more to Steve Jobs than just a nerd. And being a nerd is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I see myself as a nerd too, someone who just enjoys doing and working hard and really focusing on a specific field. And I think he did that. But I also saw him as a man who solely focused on his work. So I kind of just saw him as a workaholic. But after the speech, I realized he's so much more than that. His desire to get where he was really stemmed from his family and his parents, and there's really more depth to Steve Jobs than most people think. So, although I had some initial stereotypes of Steve Jobs, and although he's still nerdy, which isn't a bad thing, and although he wasn't a workaholic, there's just so much more depth to him, and I realized that after really listening to him speak to a big group of people, it really added depth to who he was. Last but not least, question number 5 states, how can you alter your practice of linguistic stereotyping? So linguistic stereotyping can be very dangerous because it can create boundaries between your perception and willingness to truly get to know someone and who they are as a person. In essence, I believe that linguistic stereotyping is a form of discrimination. I feel that way because if you I feel like it's a form of discrimination because if you don't and aren't willing to talk to someone or listen to someone because of the way they speak, you're discriminating against them essentially. But that does not rid me of my guiltiness of doing linguistic stereotyping, but I do hope to change this. And a few things I can do to change this is to avoid it is really getting to know someone. I shouldn't just judge someone based on the way they speak and how they speak. If I really want to know someone, I should ask them questions about themselves. I should be willing to try to understand where this person is coming from and why they speak the way they do. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe it defines who they are as a person. And I should really take the time to get to know them and really go through the process of understanding them so I can avoid all linguistic stereotyping. Because there might be a reason for the way someone speaks, you know? And also another way to avoid linguistic stereotyping is being a good listener. If you listen to the message of the speech, that does way more power than if you were just paying attention to how someone speaks rather than the true message that extends from that communication. So overall, this assignment really did teach me that I should be more open, really be a good listener, and I also learned a lot about Steve Jobs. So I hope this helped, and I hope you enjoyed my discussion. Thank you.